Welcome back to the California Conversation. I'm Tess Abraham. On his very first day in office, President Trump signed an executive order titled Protecting the Meaning and Value of American Citizenship. This order seeks to end unconditional birthright citizenship, making birthright citizenship extend only to the children of American citizens or legal permanent residents. Rob Bonta, California's Attorney General, filed a lawsuit just one day after this executive order was signed, arguing that this is unconstitutional.
It didn't take very long either.
Additionally, the California legislature has set aside $25 million for this legal battle. You might be wondering why I'm talking about this issue on a show called The California Conversation, especially since this isn't really a matter of California policy or a specific law passed in our state. But I think we should be informed about an issue that was important enough to our Attorney General to spend his time and our taxpayer money on filing a lawsuit against the Trump administration over it. Plus, Bonta argues that this issue does directly affect California because we're the state with the largest number of immigrants across the country. There is a lot to cover here, like what is birthright citizenship? How does this affect California? And does Trump's executive order have legal basis? But before we get started, please like this video, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so that you stay up to date on all things California politics. So, just what is birthright citizenship? This is a legal principle that states anyone born in America is automatically granted citizenship as a matter of birthright. In effect, if you're born on American soil, then you are American. This comes directly from the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which reads, quote, "All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside." This amendment was ratified in 1868 as part of the Reconstruction era after the Civil War, and its history and background is key to understanding the intention of the Citizenship Clause and for understanding what Trump's executive order is seeking to do today. In the 1860s, after slaves were finally granted their freedom legally, there were still questions as to how we were going to reintegrate the Union and the Confederate States. We had to define as a country what equal rights for all men meant. As a result, Congress passed the Civil Rights Act of 1866. This defined what citizenship was and what equal rights were for all people regardless of their race or their status. But they had to make sure that the protections in the Civil Rights Act were not overturned by any court in any state at any time for any reason. And how do you do that? Through a constitutional amendment. Therefore, the 14th Amendment was ratified. This way, our very Constitution guaranteed equal protection under the law, it prevented the deprivation of life or liberty, and it also granted citizenship to anyone born or naturalized in the United States, regardless of skin color and including former slaves. So, we see that the context and purpose of birthright citizenship in the 14th Amendment was to prevent the federal government or any state from denying citizenship to any person living in and subject to the jurisdiction of the United States simply based on their race or social status. Since 1868, how has the Citizenship Clause been interpreted and applied by the courts? Well, there really only has been one major court case, and that is the case of the federal government versus Wong Kim Ark. Wong Kim was born in San Francisco, and his parents were immigrants from China, but they lived here as legal permanent residents. When Wong Kim was 16, his parents returned to China, but he stayed in the United States. 5 years later, after he'd been living in the United States for his entire life, Wong Kim went to China to visit his parents, but when he came back to return to San Francisco, he was denied re-entry upon the grounds that he was not a United States citizen. The case went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they ruled 6-2 in Wong Kim's favor. He was considered a citizen, they argued, under the Citizenship Clause in the 14th Amendment. Listen to the ruling of the majority opinion on birthright citizenship. Quote, "Chinese persons born out of the United States, remaining subjects of the Emperor of China and not having become citizens of the United States, are entitled to the protection of and owe allegiance to the United States so long as they are permitted by the United States to reside here and are subject to the jurisdiction thereof in the same sense as all other aliens residing in the United States." This laid the groundwork for how birthright citizenship would be interpreted and applied in the United States up to this day. So then, what did President Trump sign in his executive order? What impact would it have, and who would it apply to? Well, birthright citizenship has always had a few exceptions. The most famous exception is the children of foreign diplomats. The children of foreign diplomats, no matter where they're born, are not considered United States citizens. Why not? Well, it all comes down to the line in the Citizenship Clause that says subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Foreign diplomats are granted diplomatic immunity under international law, which prevents them from being subject to the jurisdiction of United States law. Therefore, their children are not considered citizens. Another exception is the children of enemy forces, meaning that if some group took over some part of the United States and were not operating under federal law because they would not be allowed to take over part of the United States, then their children would not be granted American citizenship based again on the whole idea of jurisdiction. And the last exception at the time of the 14th Amendment were certain Native American tribes who were not under the jurisdiction of the federal government as they were seen as sovereign nations. These exceptions are the basis for what President Trump is trying to do in his executive order. He argues that birthright citizenship has never been universal. There have always been these agreed upon exceptions, all hinging on the idea of U.S. jurisdiction. So he isn't really ending birthright citizenship in our country, he's just adding another exception based on what's happening in our country today. We don't really face many issues with enemy forces or with sovereign Native American tribes, but an issue that we have seen spike, especially in the Biden administration, was illegal immigration. The executive order outlines that in the same way that the children of the exceptions that we just discussed are not granted American citizenship upon birth, it should also include the children of illegal immigrants or of temporary immigrants who are in our country. What this means is that if a baby is born and neither of their parents is a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident, then that baby will not be granted American citizenship as a matter of birthright. Just to clarify quickly on the residency front, a permanent resident is a green card holder. So anyone here on a work visa, student visa, tourist visa would not qualify because that status is temporary. Take my personal example. I'm an American citizen and my husband is a green card holder. Our children will be American citizens as a matter of birthright. If I married my husband while he was still on his work visa and we had a child, our children would still be citizens because I am an American citizen. However, if I was married to my husband and he was on his work visa and I was on a work visa, maybe I was from another country as well, then our children would not be granted citizenship and they would have to go through the naturalization process. Why is this coming up now? Well, it's no secret that President Trump is staunchly opposed to illegal immigration. The reality is that the incentive has risen over the past 4 years of the Biden administration for expectant mothers to cross the border illegally just so that their children, when born, are granted American citizenship. Therefore, President Trump is trying to make a concerted effort to do what the title of the executive order says, to protect the value and meaning of American citizenship. It's all rooted in the purpose of the citizenship clause at the time that the 14th Amendment was passed. The Trump administration is making the argument that its purpose was never meant to guarantee citizenship to the children of people who are coming into our country illegally and breaking our laws. Instead, its purpose was to ensure that African Americans or former slaves were not denied citizenship based on their skin color. That is entirely different than how birthright citizenship is being applied in our country today. But birthright citizenship and legislation aren't the only things created with purpose. Companies are too. And that's why you want to make sure to support companies that align with your values, like We Heart Nutrition. We Heart Nutrition is a family-owned company that creates high-quality, research-backed supplements for people who want to live well. But the best part is their mission. They're not here just to sell supplements. They're here to support life in any way possible. That means that 10% of their sales go directly towards supporting pro-life pregnancy centers across the United States. They are pro-baby, pro-mom, pro-life, and American-owned. Does it get any better than that? So, if you're looking for a supplement company that is committed to quality and integrity and that shares your values, you should use my discount code TESSABRAHAM or shop through my link below to get 20% off your order. They have all the essentials for both men and women, so if you're looking to support your body better in this new year, then you should check them out. Go to weheartnutrition.com/TessAbraham or use discount code TessAbraham at checkout to get 20% off your order to support a company that shares your values and to support the show. But back to the battle over birthright citizenship. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, this isn't really a California-specific issue, but we have seen that it will affect California, and we see that our government leaders are again pouring time and money into fighting it. So it's important for us to understand what birthright citizenship is, who it will impact, and the actual facts about what the executive order is seeking to do. Our state leaders don't like President Trump, and they showed us in his last administration how eager and willing they were to fight him at every turn. Now we're seeing that just 2 days into his new administration, they've already started a new legal battle and are allocating millions of your taxpayer dollars toward it. If we aren't informed about the issues being fought in our state, if we aren't equipped with facts and with truth, then it's easy to get complacent, to just read the headlines and believe what they say, or to even be jaded about certain hot topic issues like immigration. But immigration is an important issue. It's important because we should be a country who is fair to all, who is welcoming to those who want to come here through the legal process. But it's also important because borders are important, because our national sovereignty is something that should be upheld and defended. We don't want to discriminate against anyone based on race, sex, or religion, but we also want to preserve the values that our country stands for against those who would use our border policies to enter our country illegally. By being armed with facts, we refuse to be manipulated by flashy headlines and downright lies in the media. You should have all the facts in front of you without emotional manipulation, guilt tripping, or toxic empathy clouding your judgment. Plus, if our Attorney General thinks that it's worth his time to fight, then we should definitely know what he is fighting for and what he is fighting against. One of the most prominent lies floating around is that Trump is trying to end birthright citizenship because he's racist. That is untrue.
Wrong.
This has nothing to do with race. Now, the 14th Amendment and what was happening before it was passed, that had everything to do with racism. That was when people were denied citizenship based on their race. But that is not what is happening today. This is based on immigration status, no matter what country you're from or what color your skin is. Claiming that this is about race is a cheap lie, and it would be foolish to buy into it. At the end of the day, I don't say any of this lightly because, as I alluded to earlier in the episode, this issue is personal to me. My husband is a first-generation immigrant, and we spent so much of our time and money to get him to a place where he has permanent residence in the United States. If anyone has incentive to claim that everyone who comes here should just be automatically granted citizenship, it would be me, because I would love for my husband to be a citizen of the United States and to be able to vote in our elections. But we both agree, both me as an American citizen and him as a non-citizen, that he was never entitled to American citizenship. He went through the legal process of applying for a visa, coming over on a school visa, entering the lottery for a work visa, knowing full well that he could not get selected, then going through the hoops of doing medical examinations, meeting with lawyers, paying all of the fees for his applications, and finally being granted his green card. But he did that whole process legally because he respects the United States. He respects that each country has a right and a responsibility to set laws and to protect its own citizens. He chose to abide by those laws and is living proof that it is possible to do. One day, we will throw the biggest party imaginable to celebrate the fact that he's a United States citizen. But until then, we'll continue to respect the laws of our country and we'll continue to go through the legal process to finally obtain that citizenship. Our country's policies, laws, and government processes are not written for your friend, her mother, or my husband. Policy is written in the cold light of day for the welfare of most people, designed to protect, preserve, and uphold a country for the greater good. Requiring someone to abide by the law is not dehumanizing. It's common sense. If you want more information about birthright citizenship and how to think about illegal immigration, you should check out episode 25 of my full-length podcast, which I will link below. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope it was helpful for you as you navigate life in California. You can follow me on social media at It's Tess Abraham, and I'll see you back here next time for another episode of the California Conversation.